Hey y'all, Ramdino here, coming at you again for another Appalachian Trail community news and THru HIker update. We got a lot of stuff going on the trail right now. As you can imagine, we're right in the middle of the bubble, right smack dab in the middle of THru HIker season. So let's go ahead, talk about the 2021 THru HIkers. We got Hogman and Country Boy. They have started the trail down at Amicalola Falls State Park, as has a ton of other folks that are out there. Josh Farmer, he is through Hot Springs. Chris and Erica Burke, they have made it to the Knock. Horsepower is on his calendar year Triple Crown, and he made it to Rutland, Vermont. And he was just post-holing too much. The snow's still too much up there. He's broke some poles, and literally I saw a picture of one of his poles was shoved all the way down through the snowpack, and it was all the way up to the grip. So that is too much for him and too much for anybody. So of course he's got a whole year to do all three trails, so he moved out to the CDT, and he should be starting today or within the next day or so on the CDT. Double Take and Colonel, they have made it to Neal Gap. Outfitter, who had been off due to some pain he was having, is now back on at Dix Creek Gap. Dark Web is on his way to Dix Creek. Can you tell where the bubble is yet? Dark Web also said that he is 51 and he's been fighting some knee and heel pain, but he is doing good and he is going to continue on. Smoking Joe made it to Damascus. Night Train, Longshot, and Crusoe, they should be on their way to Damascus from Hampton. Timothy Smith, he's in the Smokies. Richard Scott, he's around Dix Creek Gap. Wendy Walsh, she had an interesting story. She was coming down to get ready to get started on the trail, and she, of course, was posting that in one of the Facebook groups, and somebody from the area up there, actually somebody from, and she's from Massachusetts, so somebody in Virginia said, hey, how about pick me up on the way? So she's going to pick a rider up in Virginia, and then somebody else in the group from Maine said, hey, can I have a ride? So they called a ride down to Massachusetts, got on with Wendy, and they are all three coming down to Amicalola Falls State Park at the same time. Wendy says the HIker Trash Party bus left this past Saturday. So that's awesome way to start your tramley right away. Just bring your tramley to the trail with you. So that's pretty cool. Marcia and Levi, they should be in North Carolina. Not so much. He's past the Kiefer Oak, and the Kiefer Oak is around mile 700. Subman and Suds and Two-Piece, they are through the Roan Mountain, or working their way through the Roan Mountain Highlands today. M&M started their flip-flop from Harper's Ferry. Aquaman, he's heading to Fontana. Mike and Kathy, they are around the Marion, Virginia area. Lunar and the Wonder Wolf Pack, minus the pups, so they are in the Smokies, and of course you can't take dogs in the Smokies, so they took a break from the kids, and the 4 adults are in the Smokies right now and should be out in the next few days. Aspenok is on the way to Damascus. Greg Berry made it to Niels. Pyro and Cujo, they are north of the Mount Rogers area. Dirt Idos plans to be through the Smokies by tomorrow. He says they've had some really bad weather last week and this week in the Smokies. Been pretty cold, and there's been as much when they had some storms move through. They had 25 to 30 people in the shelter at the Spencer Field and Siler Bald shelter. So obviously those shelters are not there. I think they're suitable for probably maybe 16, but certainly not for their double deckers in the Smokies. And you might be able to get 8 on the bottom and 8 on the top. You'd still be making your buddy smile if you did that. But they've been getting 25 to 30, so that means they've been having people on the floor and everywhere they could fit them in there. And then he's also at Peck's Corner. He said he saw somewhere around 20 to 30 tents set up around Peck's Corner. So it was still pretty cold there. He wasn't able to get a picture because of the cold, but that's kind of an indication of one of the indications of how the shelters right now are crowded in the Smokies. Atticus should be in North Carolina any day. Two Knees, he should be past Neal and on the way to Dix Creek. Skidmark and Outdoor Fresh, they're on their way to Dix Creek. Elizabeth Pert, she's on her Nobo flip-flop, and she's somewhere around the Bland area. Jerry Shannon, he is around the Luray, Virginia area on his flip-flop, and he's doing a bobo as well, but a little different bobo from what THru Hikes is doing. So THru Hikes is using 2 cars to do a bobo meaning he's bound both ways. So he takes a car north and then hikes to a car he already had positioned south, flip-flops that car around the northern car, and then hikes southbound back to the car he just flip-flopped around. So I've called that a bobo, meaning he's always moving north, but always hiking south, so he's always no-bo, but always hiking so-bo, so he's both ways bound. And this both ways bound, what Jerry Shannon is doing is that there's 2 people in 1 car. And so the first person drops off at the southern trailhead, drives around to the northern trailhead, then they walk towards each other, pass the car keys off to each other, and when the southern person now reaches the northern car, they go back and pick up the northern person who was hiking Sobo. So I'm sure they change it up a little bit so the same person's not always hiking Sobo, same person's not always hiking Nobo. So for lack of a better word, I'm calling that a bobo too. Freight train is around the knock and sent in this picture of shelter conditions. Drifters, they have made it through the Rhone Highlands, and they say there's still a little bit of ice up there on top of Rhone, and so that was, they almost took a fall up there. So, you know, Rhone is, there's some areas up there that are above 6,000 feet, so it's still going to be icy up there. Jake Liberty, he is in North Carolina. Tom Tomzik got his trail name of Potato, and he is somewhere around the knock. Tricia Thomas is around the knock. Soa is north of Newfound Gap in the Smokies and should be coming out any day now. Thinker is on his way to Roan Mountain. Miyogi is on his way to Fontana. Pungo is around Dix Creek, and he says that he can confirm that the shelter sites are crowded. He said hikers are stopping early at shelters so they can get a site in the shelter and stake their claim, so to speak. So in spite of the crowd conditions, he said everyone is getting along well. Lufa, she is back on trail after her injury, and she is on her way to the knock. She's the one in Sloth. They are in the Smokies, and they said it was Tent City in one of the shelters with 24 souls there, and that was at the Russell Field shelter. Adam Lawley got his trail name of Bear, B-A-R-E, not B-E-A-R, so something he had to, maybe lost some clothing or something there, but he's made it to Neil's. Bill Tanner started his Nobo flip-flop, and he went through Petite's Gap near McAfee's Knob and said that for a half mile around Petite's Gap, the blowdowns are so bad that he couldn't hardly get through there. Took him a long time just to get a quarter mile through there, and a lot of it he had to walk around and get off trail. So hopefully somebody watching that's in the hiking club up there and the trail club is watching this around the McAfee's Knob area, and they will get some folks out there to help them clear that trail. Spotters north of Hot Springs, and Mr. Freeze is camping somewhere tonight around the Audie Murphy Monument in Southern Virginia. So all those folks sent me their updates this week. I greatly appreciate that, folks. If you want to be included on the THru HIker update, then just send that to me. Either I would prefer to an Instagram message or an email, and those links are down below. And the only reason I don't ask that you do it or don't want you to do it through Facebook right now is Facebook has changed the way they do stuff. Like, for whatever reason, you know, these social media companies don't believe in the mantra of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. They always got to be fixing and messing around with something, and now I can't find my inbox on Facebook. Don't know where it is. So send it to me in an email or on an Instagram message. That would be the preferred method for right now. But we had several folks that had to get off the trail, so the Bacos actually got off due to foot issues last week. They didn't want me to chime in on that until they'd give me permission, so they did for this week, and they hope to be back on after a few weeks of rehab. And JD on the AT, he is off due to to knee issues, and he does not think he will be coming back this year. And the vintage hikers are also off due to knee injury. They're going to have to go to the doctors and have some scans done, and they hope to get back, but a really neat story that they'll be able to share with their friends and carry on for the rest of their lives is they got off near Bristol, Tennessee. And if you're a NASCAR fan at all, which I don't watch races anymore, used to, don't anymore, finally got bored of watching them turn left all the time. And anyhow, but Bristol, Tennessee is a pretty neat track up there where there's a big race and NASCAR, but Bristol's a small area, so when NASCAR comes to town, they rent bukus of cars. So there's not a lot of cars to be had, and when the vintage hikers needed to rent a car, they could not find a car in the area to rent. So they were smart though, and they rented a U-Haul moving truck to get home since there was no cars available. So I thought that was pretty cool story to share with what happens on a thru hike. So way to go, vintage hikers, for finding a way to get home. And we also got lots of people starting this week, more than I had time to go back, and I usually try to give everybody a shout out by name, but there was just too many people. So down below is a link to the hiker support list. I've highlighted everybody that's starting this coming week in bright yellow. If you'll go to their channels, check them out, support them as they go throughout their track, I would greatly appreciate that. And then where are we on the registrations? Well, the registrations continue to climb. Nobo, last week we had 2,611, and this week we've got 2,681. And last week for flip-floppers we had 148. This week we've got 155. And last week for Sobo we had 135. This week we've got 144. So last week our total was 2,894. We've added 86 hikers since last week, and that brings our total to 2,980. So we're getting awful close to that 3,000 mark. So only 20 more hikers. I'm sure we're going to go beyond that, but always interested to see how far beyond the 3,000 mark that we hit. And every year it keeps climbing more and more and more. And there's been about 1,000 folks that have signed the book, registration book, down at Amicalola Falls State Park. So normally by now we would have probably 1,600 or 1,700 folks that would signed it. So that's just indicative of issues that people are having with the ATC this year. So I don't have last year's stats to give you, and that is because this week is the week anniversary of when everything on the trail came off the tracks. So the ATC tried to shut it down. The National Forest Service shut down trailheads. National Park Services were shut down. This is when the big shutdown really across the nation came, but particularly for our focus on the ATC. So the ATC stopped registering people. They took down all the registration stats. Of course, they quit giving bag tags. They quit registering people down at Amicalola Falls State Park. So none of those stats are out there anymore. They were never created, when after the shutdown. So we won't be listing any of those, but in 2022, we'll be able to list those 2021 stats. So we're going to keep looking forward, keep looking ahead for positive things that are going on. So a little bit of things that are going on the trail. So the power line that was damaged, and there was major reconstruction going on at the Peters Mountain area where they had shut the trail down up there for several miles, and that's at Nobo 641. So there was no way to get through that. There was no workaround for that. You had to shuttle around it. Well, a subscriber sent me some pictures, and what has occurred is either the power company or somebody, I'm assuming either the power company or the construction crews, have created a safe trail, safe passageway through that construction site. They've marked it off with orange safety fencing, and they've actually put a sign up there that says Appalachian Trail on it. So they have designated this as the Appalachian Trail walking through that area. Not sure where the AT went through before the power lines went down, but in any case, they have created a safe passage area through there. Now, that being said, it is not official because, for what it's worth, the ATC hasn't indicated that. Their website's still saying that that area is closed through there. But there is a place you can go through there. the trail signs, if the trail closure signs are up, look carefully at those. If they are something from a National Forest Service or the construction company or the power line company, because it is a right of way, if you cross into that area, technically you are trespassing. If it's simply an ATC sign, you are not trespassing because the ATC has no authority over the Appalachian Trail. They cannot shut down the trail without an act of Congress, which they tried to do last year and they couldn't. So if it's just an ATC sign, there's really no ramifications. But that being said, if there's a sign up there, irregardless of who's got it up there, you probably shouldn't go through there. If it's somebody, National Forest Service or the power line company or somebody, you would be trespassing if you went through there. They have created a trail for you to get through there with safe passage, so use that information as you will. And I greatly appreciate folks out there, subscribers, getting me that information. This is a joint effort. It's not all about me, it's about the trail. And thanks to people helping me put this together each week by sending me that kind of information. And also, that subscriber said that they talked to Andrew with the ATC. Andrew, he's been really involved in this Mountain Valley pipeline hush money fiasco the ATCs took, but he's also something to do in Southern Virginia, some type of regional director, I think. I don't know what his position, his official title is, but they said they talked to him and they indicated that Andrew told them that not to expect the AT to be open through that power line damaged area before April 1st. So that means sometime April 1st, no specific date when, could be, you know, months after that, but certainly not before April 1st would it be open officially. Also bear in mind that there are a lot of prescribed burns going on by the National Forest Service. This time of year is when it's not too dry to where they can't keep prescribed burns under control, but it's also maybe not so wet that it won't burn, and so now is when they're kind of burning the understory, burning undergrowth that's happening in the forest, and that helps wildlife, and it also helps forest fires from getting out of hand by taking the fuel that would be there, that would dry out the small stuff in the summer that would be there to provide fuel for a larger forest fire. So that's the reason they're doing that, and you can expect that up and down the AT for the next couple months. Of course, as the further north you go, that's extended out once the snowpack dries up and melts down and things dry up. Further north, you can expect there to be some prescribed burns up there too. And then I've also had several folks have sent me different indications of the tent cities that are around the shelters, particularly in Georgia. One of them was, they said there was 31 tents around the Hawk Mountain shelter down there, and that shelters are maxed out beyond the normal capacity. So the ATC says the capacity of a 12-person shelter down in Georgia is 6, even though they tell you not to stay there. So technically they're closed, but if you are going to stay there, it's only 6 people to stay there. I know that doesn't make any sense at all, but I'm not the one that wrote that. However, there's been way more than 12, which is the normal capacity of the Hawk Mountain shelter there anyhow. So, you know, these are the times, not only, you know, we've got, of course, COVID out there, but what I'm really more concerned about than anything is the Norovirus. Now is when the Norovirus, when things are starting to get really packed in the Smokies, and people are in the bubbles moving north, is when the Norovirus usually shows up in Hot Springs, shows up in Damascus. So keep that in mind. Everybody needs to be out there practicing proper sanitation, not sharing their food, letting people put their hands in your food bag or in your gourd bag or not, what have you, not drinking after other people, just playing it smart, folks. And then we've got some COVID advisories. They are changing. A lot of stuff is getting better and opening up. The Maryland Department of Health has a travel advisory is remaining in place there, and they say visitors should have a negative test within 72 hours prior to coming into the state of Maryland, or can quarantine until a negative test result is received. So you don't have to wait the 2 weeks. You can just quarantine till you can get one, and now you're getting some instant test at some of these Walgreens and CVCs, places like that. Connecticut's travel advisory has been modified. Whispers, who is our northern correspondent up there, he says that the Massachusetts travel restrictions will change from an order, which is a requirement, to an advisory, which is a recommendation starting this coming Monday, which is March 22nd. And also in Connecticut, the travel advisory site there explicitly states that mandates and requirements are not currently in place in Connecticut. And then the New Hampshire governor put out a press conference. Governor Sununu explicitly told New Hampshire residents that planned for a full summer with all the activities that folks enjoyed in 2019. So things are getting better. Things are opening up. I'm awfully excited about that. And so just looking forward to people having a great hike as more and more stuff opens up. Last week we had a giveaway for some carbon fiber trekking poles, and the winner of those hiking sticks is Bonnie and Jim's Big Adventure. So Bonnie and Jim, if you'll send me an email or an Instagram message with your address of where you want those Tac Niner carbon fiber trekking poles sent to you, I will get those sent to you by Tac Niner. So I'll contact them and they'll send those to you directly. So one thing I wanted to highlight this week, and I'll do it again next week, is that, you know, we all come to the trail for different reasons. A lot of people come there to bring baggage and to try to unload that baggage or deal with that baggage. I go to the trail to get out of the matrix, to shed the baggage of the matrix that happens at work or just things in general. And I go out there to rejuvenate myself, recharge myself just in God's creation and God's glory, and just being out there and enjoying the woods while I'm out there, and also enjoying the camaraderie of the hiker community. Others go out there because they've experienced some, their baggage is some tragedy in life. So, it could be they've gone through a divorce, but in this case, it's that they have lost a loved one. And particularly in the case of Spotter, he lost his daughter to suicide not too long ago. So I know of another hiker. I'll talk about him next week, but this week I did want to highlight Spotter. And Spotter, I asked him if I could share this with you, and he of course wouldn't be sharing it if he didn't give me permission to do so. And he sent me the information and stuff that he felt like that he wanted to share. And I think it's very courageous for people to do that, because there's other people out there that are in the same boat. And Spotter's hope and my hope is that this will help other people out there deal with their tragedy, particularly of losing a child to death, or to, obviously suicide is a death, but due to an untimely death, like dying from a cancer or something, or in this case, dying from suicide. And so he said that his daughter's name was Kayla. She was 24 when she shot herself. She played softball and was a catcher, and she was an amazing girl, but she felt abandoned. Said her mother really never had anything to do with her, and Spotter had some substance abuse addictions, and he indicated he was not the father that he should have been. And she had a conversation with him and told him how she felt about him as a father about 2 months before she took her own life. And for whatever reason, Spotter was not able to help her through that. And that is a tragedy, and that is something that he carries with him. And so what he's doing is he is carrying, just like he carries that burden with him, he is actually carrying her ashes with him on his hike. And part of that is because they were supposed to take a hike together, and she took her life before they had that opportunity to take that hike together. I can't help but think that that would have been a time of healing for both of them, and then it never happened. And so he carries that in a stuffed teddy bear, and his plans are to carry that all the way with him till he summits Katahdin. So my desire and my prayer for you, Spotter, and for those that are out there with tragedies that are carrying this baggage as they go up the trail and they reach their destination, whether it be Katahdin or somewhere in between, is that you will find that healing along the trail. The trail is a trail of healing. A lot of people find that the healing that they need on that trail, and from the hiker community that is on the trail. And so I hope that you and pray that you find that, and that when you get to Katahdin, you can release this burden, release this baggage from you, and set that free, and you will be free indeed. So if there's any others out there, I know that there are resources. Reach out to me and I'll be glad to direct you some of those resources. And in the future, I'll be talking about some of those resources. But for now, appreciate you, and we'll see you out here.